Hi everybody, it's Tom from FindTheBestCarPrice.com. Yes, I am not just a voice. Occasionally I appear in front of the camera. This is the 2022 Land Rover Range Rover. I gave you a quick sneak peek of it last week in a video. We talked about the pros and the cons and a little bit about what's new. But I also promised you that I was going to give you an interior-only tour because that's where the real changes are. That's where you're going to find the magic and all of the high-tech gadgets. In fact, as my videographer Carrie comes back here to the rear, I'm glad we have this one sitting at the lowest ride height possible because it gives us the best option to show you something here. Because of all of the technology up here, you have a second shark fin antenna on the top of the vehicle. One was not enough to handle all of the technology that is housed within this Range Rover. So let's get started. Like I said, I promised you we would take a look at the interior. Let's start here. Okay, now that we've opened the power rear lift gate, you can see a couple of things here. You do have the cargo cover, and by the way, guys, this is not likely where you're going to want your cargo cover. There is another couple of notches where you can move this up in front, kind of behind the middle row seats if you want to do that. But let's talk about this. Here is your split tailgate. Nothing new to the Land Rover brand, but kind of interesting. So here's the thing. Here's what the split tailgate is all about. Now, you've got a couple of options here. For storage purposes, if you have something you don't want rolling around in your interior, well, that's what these straps are for right here. But the thing that I really like about that is the fact that you can change how large they are, what fits inside there. If you want to have 2 wine bottles sitting here, for example, you can put them through both the top and the bottom strap, but you can still change the position of how large of an item those straps will accept. But that's not all. It's a multitasker, as I like to say. Now, you can take those off of there. These pads right here are an option, but you can use that as a backrest if you want to for tailgating back here or stargazing or whatever the case may be. But that's not all you can do. You also have the ability, and I've got video of this completely set up and in place, but basically kind of seat cushions of sorts that are built in that come with the vehicle. I think these are an option. I don't believe that's standard equipment, but obviously that is there. And let's just see. Now, if it wasn't for the cargo cover right here, it'd be a little bit easier to show you, but we're gonna leave that in place. I think you get the idea. That's actually really comfortable. You could sit back here for a while and be nice and happy. And what's cool beyond that is the fact that right up here at night, you have the lights right here. That's intended for this purpose. Not only that, but also the speakers in just the perfect place. Sound is going to permeate throughout this whole area right here around the vehicle. Perfect for tailgating. Kind of interesting that we're talking about tailgating with a Land Rover, but yet there it is, and that's what we're doing. So I'm going to move all of this back into place right here. And let's talk a little bit about the panel you have right here and the switches that you have right here. In fact, you have some buttons right here. What's interesting here is if you want to lower all of the seats at one time, watch this. I pushed that button right there at the top, that option right there, it's almost like a small screen, but notice how it lowers everything down. So here's the good thing. You can also lower the middle or the rear seats right here with these buttons. And so the thing I like about that, here's the deal. On a lot of vehicles, when you bring the seats back up, you have to hold the buttons or you have to go to those middle row seats and pull them back up manually. Not in this case. I'm going to hit both at one time. We're going to let those come up first just so you can see that in action. There we go. I hit that button again one time. I'm not holding that down. I really like that, just convenience. And for $141,000, well, you would expect that you would have things like that. But we're just getting started. Let's hop into the seats and show you what your middle and rear seat passengers are going to find. All right, guys. Something I like here, I'm gonna let Carrie show you the door panel, and you've got the shade over there. That is a power shade, by the way, and notice the size. It covers the entire window. I like that. I've seen a lot of other vehicles that have window shades like that, whether they're manual or power, as these are, that don't cover the entire window. So that's good. And moving on to the door panel itself, let's talk about functionality right here. There's quite a few things that you can do. Obviously, as you can see, you've got the controls For the seats themselves, you can change the position of the seats, move them back and forth, recline, whatever you want to do with that. But the cool thing about that is notice how it has the M and then the 1, and then on that other button it has the 2 and the 3. That's your seat memory. Not something you normally see set up like that, and definitely not something you see in the rear seat area of most vehicles. So I like that. Also, the switches right here that allow you to control, obviously, raising and lowering the windows, raising and lowering these power shades. But the button right there with the window on it that has the 2 arrows, depending on where you turn that on or where those arrows are pointing, you can actually control the other window from there, or you control both windows from there. There's quite a bit going on as far as that goes. And you've got your door bins right there. Obviously, you'd expect to have quite a bit of space back here, decent sized door bins for your middle row seat passengers. But what about gaining access to the rear seat area? I'm gonna let Carrie show you the buttons right there. Those 2 arrows that you see, the up and the down arrows, I'm gonna go ahead and push one on my side. I'm gonna push the down arrow and watch what happens. Again, hands-free, it does it in a pretty timely manner, gets up and out of the way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hop into the back seat and I'm gonna let Carrie hit his button for you right there, and I'm gonna bring mine back. And the good thing is, guess what? You don't have to worry about if maybe whoever's riding in the back seat, the kids will fit back here really well, but adults can fit back here too. I'm 5'10", and well, my head's almost up there on the ceiling, but Carrie showed you my leg room right there. But the good thing about it, I'll let Carrie show you what's right here. You've got your USB port right there, but you also have the ability to move the seat back and forth as well. So that's a good option. This button right here, guess what? Heated 3rd row seats. How often do we see that? Not very often. And then the cup holder right here. And everybody in this vehicle has their own air conditioning vent, including the rear seat passengers, 1 on each side. We've got the 1 right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the button to get back out. And one thing that's interesting, kind of a side note here on this, to move the seats forward, you push the button 1 time. You just push it and let go of it. But to bring them all the way back, you have to hold it down. Why that is, I don't know. Kind of an interesting thing there. You get that out of the way so that it's not in our way. Probably don't want plastic in the video. Let's see if I can get out of here without making a blooper. So there are 2 more switches right here above those arrows that, here's what happens. I'm gonna hit them both at 1 time, and here's what happens. You can lower the rear seats from right here if needed. Yeah, just an added little option there. And again, I like the fact that those are just 1 touch in both directions. So that is a good thing. So, okay, so I'm gonna hop in here and let's talk a little bit about what you will find as far as you've got 2 more air conditioning vents here. And yes, that is some paper that's on there, but we're gonna leave that on there just because the dealership hasn't taken it off. But as you can see, you've got the controls here for everything to do with whether it's the heated seats or controlling fan speed or whatever it is you need to do. If you want to control temperature on the heated seats, well, there you go, you can do that. And obviously fan speed, temperature, very easy to figure out. We also have connectivity down here, USB connectivity. There's a 12 volt right there in the center, and then a power outlet right there, something we don't see very often, but it is there. And then when we hop into the front seat here in just a second, if I don't fall asleep because this seat is so far reclined right here, that is awfully comfortable. I could just take a nap right now, but I don't want to do that because you probably wouldn't stick around for long. So let's jump into the front seat and we'll show you the panoramic sunroof. All right, we've got the power shade moving out of the way so you can see the panoramic sunroof. And yes, you can open that sunroof if you want to. And then I'm gonna bring that back forward. Let's take a look at the door panel on the passenger side over there. Very similar to what we saw on the rear doors. You're gonna pretty much see the same thing for the most part on the driver's side as well. And notice again, you have seat memory for all of the seats here. The front seats and the middle row seats. That's a good thing. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting here, and I don't quite understand it necessarily, but if I was gonna have a con that I didn't talk about in last week's video, it would be right here. The fact that the buttons that you use to open the upper glove box, I should say, Well, there you go. You open that up and then you can open the lower glove box. But the thing about that, the con, so to speak, is the fact that those do not work unless the ignition is on. So you can't just walk out into the garage if you need to grab something real quick without the remote. You've got to hit the button right here. You don't have to necessarily start the engine to do that, but kind of interesting. You would think that it wouldn't be that difficult. And something else that I know a lot of people have talked about they don't like necessarily is these armrests. They are not very soft, and you would think at $141,000 that there would be more give than that. You can see how hard I'm pressing on that with my thumb. And then there is that adjustment that I know a lot of you don't like, because you've talked about that in previous videos as far as how far this will go down or whatever adjustment you want to make there. But overall, the seats themselves, the leather seating, very comfortable. Now there are a couple of options that are not here that are available, such as the adjustable headrest that you can move back and forth to kind of fit the contour of your head, and the built-in speakers within the headrest. That's not there either, but it is an option that's available. So we're gonna have Carrie hop on inside, and we're gonna start off by showing you the rear view mirror. And you might think, well, that's just a typical rear view mirror, right? No, it isn't. There is your clear sight rear view mirror. That's gonna be that one of those shark fin antennas that we looked at on the rear earlier has the camera built into it. So there you go. If you need to use that, you can. It does take some getting used to, I have to admit, because I've used a few vehicles, driven a few vehicles that have that. If you've never had it before, yeah, it takes some getting used to. And then we'll have Carrie come over here. We'll show you the dashboard, really a digital instrument cluster more than anything else. You can go through a lot of different options here. I'm not going to go through everything. I just want to kind of show you a little bit of what's here as far as your options and your features go right there. You can see you have navigation also on that digital dashboard, digital instrument cluster, whatever you wish to call that right there. But there you go, pretty simple. Steering wheel mounted controls also very easy to figure out, very easy to use. It might look a little complicated, but it really isn't. And I do like the fact that the shifter paddles here, if you're driving in dynamic mode and you want to drive spiritedly, well, there you go. You can change the gears in your transmission that way. Very easy to do. The one knock I always have about that is I wish they were affixed to the steering column instead of to the steering wheel itself, so that when you're moving the steering wheel, the shifter paddles don't move with you. And obviously this is a power adjustable steering wheel, as you can see, tilt and telescopically, so we're good on that. And the most important change, I think, for 2022, you have the Pivi Pro infotainment system here, the Pivi Pro screen. And there is a lot going on here with this vehicle. We're going to go through a few different things and just show you what's here. Pretty easy to figure out what all is there. And something that has changed is you no longer want to have Carrie pan right down here. Here is the dial selector for your driving modes, but you don't raise and lower the vehicle the way you used to. You don't have the buttons right there to do that. You can select like that, push the button down or push the dial down, and it will automatically select the driving modes for you. But if you want to do things yourself, what we'll do is we'll push right here. Let me make sure I showed you what I did right here. I pushed right here. Now listen carefully. Kind of interesting how that sounds. You can actually change the sensitivity on that if you want to, but you kind of feel a little bit of feedback through the screen when you push on anything. So if I change to normal, watch what happens. I don't know if you could hear the air back there with the air ride system, but you'll be able to see what's going on there on the right-hand side of the screen. In fact, we'll go to off-road so we can get it up to maximum ride height, just so you can see what happens. It's very interesting to see what the vehicle is doing. We can feel it moving around inside, feel it changing ride height, increasing the ride height. And obviously it's kind of interesting that it almost looks like it's a computer that's looping and having trouble right there in the center of the screen when you change things, until it gives you that check mark and lets you know that everything has changed. And then drive, let's hit that right there just so we can show you a little bit of what's here. If you're wanting to know where the engine stop start turn off option is, well, it's right here, because I know a lot of people don't like that. I can't say that I blame you for that. And then your brake hold mode is right there. So pretty easy to deal with where that is concerned. And let's take a look at our rear view camera options. You also have your overhead 360-degree view, as you can see there. And then obviously the trajectory lines are going to change depending on which direction I do that. By the way, you do have four-wheel steering here. I think we have some footage I can show you from earlier of what that looked like. And then let's see here. Let me go back into reverse one more time here just to show you, in case you're wondering, what does that look like for off-road? Well, there's what you have right there. It really doesn't change a whole lot as far as this picture itself goes, but it shows you what's going on with the vehicle. And then, guess what? For those of you who have seen my videos on the Ford and Chevrolet front camera washers, well, here you have a rear camera washer. Kind of interesting, isn't it? We haven't seen that before, I don't believe, on these models in the past when we've reviewed them, but there it is. Pretty simple to see. There's so much here that I could really do just nothing but this as far as the screen goes and do one full video on it. Obviously, built-in navigation. You don't have to worry about Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or pairing your phone to use navigation, as you can see on the screen right there. Pretty easy to use, pretty self-explanatory. And moving down here below the screen, all the controls for the air conditioning and all the functionality to do with that, pretty similar to what we saw in the rear area as well, as far as if you want to use the heated seat function or change the fan speed or what you might want to do. There you go, you can do that on both sides. And so obviously you can hide things away right there. Your wireless charging pad, you've got another USB right there, and you've kind of seen everything here. Here's your start stop button for the engine. Control for the radio, turn that on and off, your volume. There's your shifter, pretty simple to figure out, and there's those cup holders. But guess what? That's not all there is. Underneath there, storage, quite a bit of storage right there. I like that. And then you also have storage right here to round things out. Now, you'll notice there is no refrigerator here, but that is an available option. And so for the short tour, trying to show you what's here, there you go. That's what you have on the interior of the 2022 Land Rover Range Rover. One thing I did want to make sure I covered here. Let's go right here. We're going to push that, and that's going to bring up some options here. We're going to go to cameras, and I wanted to show you one of my personal favorite features. You can zoom in and look at your surroundings all around the vehicle. You don't just have to rely on that 360-degree overhead view. You can also see it from, well, pretty much every view possible. If you're in a really tight spot, maybe you're doing a little off-roading, for those of you who actually own Land Rovers who know that you do off-roading, instead of those who complain about it who don't own Land Rovers. Well, there you go. That could be helpful in a situation like that. Or even if you're dealing with the jungle of parking lots in the big city where people kind of, well, do some strange things. There's just so much here. I think Land Rover has done a fantastic job. Everything is nice and clear. You also have that off-road view right there that shows you what's going on with the suspension and everything of the vehicle, kind of telling you what's getting traction and what's not. So a pretty neat system right here. Pretty simple to use, pretty simple to figure out. So ultimately, there you go. There's your camera views and how they work on this Land Rover. To learn more about the model in today's video, visit the link in the description for a detailed comparison between trims and pricing for the vehicle we featured or any vehicle you may be interested in. These pages feature information such as our recommended trim level based on price, value, and features. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. We look forward to seeing you next time.